Morning came into Jackie Lee's house the way it had been coming in since Reeves arrived, quietly, without announcement, through curtains that let the light in gradually rather than all at once. He was dressed and moving through the hallway before Jackie's alarm had finished its first cycle. By the time she appeared in the kitchen doorway, he had the coffee made and his jacket on, and the particular focused energy of a man who had woken up already knowing what the day required of him. Jackie looked at the coffee, then at the jacket. "You're in a hurry," she said. "I'll drive you to the shop," Reeves said. She studied him for a moment with the morning version of her expression, softer at the edges than the daytime version, but no less perceptive. Then she went to get ready without asking why. He pulled up in front of Jackie Lee's donut shop 22 minutes later and parked at the curb while Jackie gathered her things from the passenger seat. The morning was cool and clear, and the shop's front window already had the particular glow of a place in the process of becoming itself for the day. Jackie pushed the car door open and stepped out. Then she turned back and leaned slightly into the doorframe, the way she did when she had something to say and was deciding how to say it. "Come in for a minute," she said. Reeves followed her inside. The shop smelled the way it always smelled in the early morning. Fryers warming, coffee brewing, the particular sweetness of dough. It hadn't finished becoming what it was going to be yet. How, eh? Jackie moved behind the counter with the efficiency of someone running through a routine she could manage in her sleep. Reeves leaned against the counter on the customer side and watched the shop wake up around him. "How many you want?" Jackie asked without turning around. "How many what?" She looked back at him over her shoulder. "Don't play with me this early, Reeves." He almost smiled. "Whatever you're putting in a bag." She reached for a small paper bag and moved along the glass case with the decisive energy of a woman who had already made the decision before asking the question. A few selections. The bag folded at the top with a neat efficiency. She slid it across the counter. Reeves picked it up and looked inside briefly. Jelly donuts. A couple of apple fritters. He folded the top back down. "Thank you," he said. Jackie had already turned back toward the prep area. "Lock comes off at opening," she said. "You know the way out." Reeves picked up the bag, turned toward the door. He heard her footsteps behind him, and then felt something that stopped him completely before he understood what it was. Jackie's hand on his arm, turning him slightly, and then the brief warm press of her lips against his jaw, just below the cheekbone, there and then gone in the space of a breath. Reeves stood completely still. Jackie had already stepped back. She was looking at him with an expression that was complicated in the specific way that expressions are when something has happened that surprised the person it happened to as much as the person it happened for. Neither of them spoke for a moment. "I'll check on you later," Reeves said quietly. Jackie nodded once, then turned back to her counter. Reeves walked out into the morning and stood beside the car for a moment with the paper bag in his hand and the cool air on his face. Then he got in and drove. The Safehouse street was empty at this hour. Industrial quiet. The kind of block that didn't generate morning traffic because nothing on it required people to arrive at a particular time. Reeves parked and walked to the boarded door and knocked 3 times in the particular pattern that meant it was him. A long pause. Then the lock turned from the inside, and Joshua pulled the door open and stood there looking at Reeves with the careful expression of a young man who had spent the night inside a complicated situation and come out the other side of it, neither resolved nor unresolved, but simply more tired. Reeves held up the paper bag. Something in Joshua's face shifted slightly. He stepped back and let him in. The other kid, Sprays, was sitting on the couch in the living area with his knees pulled up and his arms wrapped around them in the particular posture of someone who had slept but not rested. He looked younger in the morning light than he had looked in the dark outside the church, young enough that the fear on his face had a quality to it that Reeves recognized from years of working cases that involved children who had ended up in situations designed for adults. Joshua took the bag to the kitchen, and Reeves sat down in the chair across from the couch. He looked at the kid for a moment without speaking. Let the silence be comfortable enough that filling it didn't feel like an obligation. "You hungry?" Reeves asked. The kid looked toward the kitchen where Joshua was opening the bag, then back at Reeves. He nodded. "Go get something," Reeves said. "I'll be here." The kid unfolded himself from the couch and went to the kitchen. Reeves listened to the quiet sounds of the two young men moving around each other in the small kitchen space. The rustle of the bag. Joshua saying something low that Reeves couldn't make out. The kid responding in a voice that was slightly less compressed than it had been the night before. A few minutes passed. Joshua came back and leaned in the kitchen doorway with a donut in his hand, which was his way of communicating that he understood what was about to happen and was making himself available without inserting himself into it. Reeves nodded toward the front of the safe house. Joshua understood. He moved to the other room without being asked twice. The kid came back to the couch with a jelly donut and sat down and looked at Reeves with the particular wariness of someone who'd been asked questions by adults before and had learned through experience that the answers rarely produced outcomes that favored him. Reeves leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, not looming, not official, just present. "What's your name?" Reeves asked. The kid looked at the donut. "Sprays," he said. "That's what people call you." Reeves said, "What's your name?" A pause. "The kind that has weight in it." "Sam," the kid said quietly. Then, like it cost him something additional to produce it, "Sam Donalds." Reeves nodded. Didn't write it down, didn't reach for anything. Just held it the way you hold something someone has handed you carefully. "How old are you, Sam?" 15. Reeves said nothing for a moment. "Where are you from?" Sam looked at the wall beside the window, then back at the donut in his hands. "I left," he said. "I know you left," Reeves said. "Where did you leave from?" Another pause. Longer. "Home," Sam said. The word came out smaller than the others, like it had been handled too many times and worn down at the edges. Reeves waited. Sam took a bite of the donut and chewed slowly and looked at the floor, and when he spoke again, his voice had the particular flatness of someone reporting facts they have already made peace with in private. "It wasn't," he started, then stopped, started again. "Nobody did anything to me. Nobody hit me or anything like that." He looked up briefly. "I just didn't feel it anymore." "Feel what?" Reeves said. "That they wanted me there," Sam said. "Like I was..." He stopped again. Looked back at the floor. "I kept waiting for it to feel like home, and it just didn't." He shrugged with the specific kind of shrug that isn't indifference, but has learned to wear indifference's clothes. "So I left." The safe house was quiet around them. Reeves sat with that for a moment, not rushing toward the next question, letting the young man's words exist at their full size before anything else came near them. "Your parents," Reeves said. "They know where you are?" Sam shook his head. "Do they know you left?" "By now," Sam said. "Yeah." Reeves nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "Nothing else. No judgment attached to it. No direction implied by it. Just the word itself acknowledging what had been shared." Sam looked at him with the cautious expression of someone waiting for the part where the adult used what they'd just been told against them. When that part didn't come, he looked back at the donut and took another bite and seemed to settle fractionally into the couch. Reeves stood. "Stay inside," he said. "Both of you. I'll be back." He walked to the door, put his hand on the frame. "Mr. Reeves," Sam said. Reeves looked back. The kid was looking at him directly for the first time since the conversation started. "Are you going to make me go back?" Reeves held his eyes for a long moment. "I'm going to find out some things first," he said. "That's all." He stepped outside and locked the door behind him. He drove until he found a payphone 2 neighborhoods over. Not the one near Jackie's shop, not the one near Hassan's. A different one on a corner that didn't have any particular reason to be remembered. He slid the dime in and dialed a number he hadn't called in 3 years. It rang 4 times. Then a voice answered that was older and rougher than Reeves remembered it being, but unmistakably the same voice. The kind of voice that belonged to a man who had spent decades in rooms where voices needed to carry authority without being raised. "It's Reeves," the captain said. A pause. Then, "I'll be damned. I need something," Reeves said. "Off the books, between us." Another pause, shorter. the pause of a man recalibrating from surprise to business. Where? The warehouse is off Meridian, Reeves said. The stretch past the old freight yard. When? This afternoon, Reeves said. Late. All right, the voice said. Then the line went quiet in a way that meant the conversation was finished without needing to be formally ended. Reeves hung up. He called Debbie from the same phone. She answered on the second ring the way Debbie answered everything, present and prepared, as though she had been expecting the call to come at exactly this moment. I need to stop by, Reeves said. Got things to tell you. I'll put the coffee on, Debbie said. Debbie's living room received him the same way it always did, with the particular warmth of a space organized around the serious business of paying attention to the world. She was already on the couch with the notepad when he sat down across from her. Coffee on the table between them. Pen in hand. The expression of a woman fully prepared to receive difficult information without making it about herself. Reeves started from the hallway. He told her about overhearing Joshua's phone call, the cracked bedroom door, the fragments of conversation that came through. I told you I'd be there. Nobody's gonna know. Just tell me where. The fear underneath the lowered voice that Reeves had recognized immediately and said nothing about when he came back to the living room and sat back down and let Joshua believe his secret was still intact. Debbie wrote without interrupting. Her pen moved steadily across the notepad, capturing each detail with the careful precision of someone who understood that the sequence of things mattered as much as the things themselves. He told her about sitting outside the house in the brown sedan, the donuts, Hassan's store, the water and the soda and the candy bars, and the long hours of watching a front door that didn't open until evening settled over the street. He told her about following Joshua, the 20 minutes through the neighborhood, the church on Chesterfield and Green Acre coming through the windshield again with the yellow brontosaurus and the purple dragon on its wall. The second kid emerging from the shadows, the shape in the third-floor window across the street that the darkness made uncertain, but that 31 years made unambiguous. Debbie's pen stopped. She looked up at him. A rifle? Reeves said. She wrote it down, slowly. He told her about flooring the accelerator, the tires screaming against the asphalt, Joshua recognizing him through the open door, the two of them piling into the car and the headlights appearing in the rearview mirror and then disappearing when the turns stopped working in their favor. He told her about the safe house, what it looked like from the outside and what it looked like from the inside, the 2 bedrooms and the stocked kitchen and the clothing in the closets. The instructions he left before locking the door from outside and standing alone on that dark industrial street with everything rearranged inside him. He told her about Sam Donalds, 15 years old, going by sprays, left home not because of anything done to him, but because of something absent, the feeling of being wanted, of belonging somewhere, of a home that felt like one. He told her what the kid's face looked like when he asked if Reeves was going to make him go back. Debbie set the pen down. She looked at the notepad for a moment, then out the window, then back at Reeves. You should have told me sooner, she said. I know, Reeves said. She picked the pen back up. But, she paused. Something in her expression shifted from the professional focus into something more personal. She looked at him with the particular expression of a woman who has just had a problem solved by information she didn't know was going to solve it. Dolly comes home tomorrow. Reeves looked at her. My daughter, Debbie said. She's been at her father's. She's coming back tomorrow, and I didn't. She stopped, looked at the notepad. I didn't know how to have Joshua here when she arrived. I didn't know how to explain the situation to her. She's young, and she doesn't need to be inside any of this. She looked back at Reeves. But now he's not here. Reeves said nothing. So that problem, Debbie said carefully, has solved itself. The two of them sat with that for a moment, the particular quiet of a living room where 2 people have just understood something simultaneously without needing to say it out loud. She can't know about any of this, Reeves said. She won't, Debbie said. Her voice carried the quiet, absolute certainty of a mother who had been protecting her child from difficult things for long enough that it had become its own kind of expertise. She looked back at the notepad and began writing again. Reeves watched her hand move across the page. Names, locations, details, sequences of events. All of it being recorded in the careful, organized system of a woman who understood that truth needed to be preserved because the people who buried things counted on everyone else's failure to keep records. 2 hours passed the way hours pass when the conversation has real weight to it. The coffee was refilled once. The notepad filled several pages. Outside, the afternoon moved through its arrangements without consulting either of them. When Reeves finally stood and put on his jacket, Debbie looked up from a final notation and held his eyes for a moment. "Be careful," she said. It wasn't a pleasantry. It was a specific instruction delivered by a woman who had been paying close enough attention to understand that careful was no longer optional. "Always," Reeves said. She looked back at her notepad. He let himself out. He stopped at Jackie's shop on the way. The lunch crowd had thinned, and the afternoon regulars hadn't fully arrived yet, leaving the shop in the particular in-between quiet that Jackie used for restocking and prep, and the small organizational tasks that kept the operation running beneath its visible surface. She was behind the counter when Reeves came through the door, and she looked up with the expression she reserved for his unannounced appearances. Somewhere between unsurprised and unwilling to admit it. He sat down at the counter. Jackie came around with a coffee cup and set it in front of him and leaned against the counter on her side with her arms folded. "You kissed me this morning," Reeves said. Jackie looked at him steadily. "I know what I did." I know what I did, Reeves," she said again. Her voice was even. Not defensive, not embarrassed. Just honest in the way that Jackie was honest about most things. Directly and without theater. She looked at the counter for a moment, then back at him. "When you came to the door this morning, ready to drive me to work," she paused. "My husband used to drive me to work. Every morning for years. He would come around to the door, and I would kiss him on the jaw before he left." She looked at her hands on the counter. "This morning, I forgot for a second. Where I was, who was standing there." She looked up. I wasn't trying to, I know," Reeves said quietly. She looked at him. "It won't happen again." "Jackie, it won't," she said. Firm. Final. The tone of a woman closing a door on something before it could become something else. But underneath the firmness, there was something that wasn't entirely steady, and both of them could hear it, and neither of them said so. Reeves picked up the coffee cup and held it. Jackie unfolded her arms and turned back toward the prep area. Then she stopped and reached beneath the counter and produced a brown paper bag folded neatly at the top and set it beside his coffee without looking at him. "What's this?" Reeves asked. "Open it," Jackie said. He unfolded the top of the bag and looked inside. 2 ham and egg sandwiches wrapped in wax paper. A small bottle of orange juice. The kind of thing a person prepares when they've been paying attention to someone else's eating habits and have decided to do something about them without making it a conversation. Reeves looked at the bag for a moment. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome," Jackie said. Already moving, already back to the business of the shop, already putting distance between the moment and whatever the moment had been. Reeves folded the bag closed and stood and put some money on the counter for the coffee. "I'll be late tonight," he said. "Lock up after the last customer." Jackie nodded without turning around. He picked up the bag and walked to the door. Stopped with his hand on the frame and looked back at her once. The line of her shoulders, the efficiency of her movements, the particular way she carried the weight of her own life without asking anyone to help hold it. Then he walked out into the afternoon. The drive to the warehouses off Meridian took just over an hour. The freight yard came first. Rusted infrastructure and long, flat stretches of track that hadn't seen regular use in years. Then the warehouses themselves. A stretch of industrial buildings that the city had stopped paying attention to long enough ago that the buildings had stopped paying attention back. No cameras, no regular patrols. No reason for anyone to be here who wasn't specifically trying to be somewhere that didn't generate records. Reeves parked at the far end of the stretch and got out and leaned against the hood of the car and waited. 5 minutes passed. Then from between 2 buildings, a figure emerged. Older than Reeves remembered. The years had taken something from the posture, but not from the eyes, which were the same. Sharp and watchful, and belonging to a man who had spent a career developing the specific skill of seeing more than he showed. He didn't come all the way to the car, stopped 10 feet away in the shadow of the nearest building, and stood there with his hands in his jacket pockets, in the manner of someone who had learned long ago that meetings like this were conducted with appropriate distance between the participants. Reeves looked at him. "Thank you for coming." The man nodded once, said nothing. "I need an APB," Reeves said. "Quiet, nothing official, just ears in the right places." The man's eyes didn't change. "Who?" "Parents of a 15-year-old, Reeves said. "Boy goes by Sprays. Real name Sam Donalds." He described the kid, the build, the approximate height, the way he carried himself, the neighborhood he'd indicated without quite naming. "I need to know who his parents are, and I need to hear their side before anything else happens." The man listened without writing anything down. Another skill that came from years of operating in spaces where writing things down created problems. "Couple days," the man said. "That's fine," Reeves said. The man studied him for a moment. "This connected to the other thing?" Reeves considered that. "Might be," he said. "I don't know yet." The man nodded. Then, without another word, he turned and walked back between the two buildings, and the shadow took him as cleanly as if he had simply stopped existing in the space he'd been standing in. Reeves stood at the hood of the car and listened to the freight yard settle around him in the late afternoon quiet. Then he got in. Drove back toward the city. He stopped at the payphone on the corner 2 neighborhoods from Jackie's shop. Dropped the dime, dialed the shop number. The line rang. Once, twice, 3 times, 4. He stood with the receiver against his ear and listened to it ring and told himself there was a reasonable explanation. Last customer keeping her busy. Prep work in the back. The particular chaos of closing time that sometimes meant the phone went unanswered for a few minutes. 5 rings. 6. He hung up, stood at the phone for a moment. Then he dropped another dime and dialed again. 1 ring. 2. Then the line connected. And he heard Jackie's voice. 1 word. No. And then the scream. Sharp and sudden and cut off at the edges in the specific way that sounds are cut off when something intervenes between a person and the sound they're making. Then silence. The particular silence of a line that is still open but has nothing left to offer. Reeves stood at the payphone with the receiver in his hand, and the silence coming through it, and the dime's worth of connection running out, and the city moving indifferently around the phone booth on all sides. His knuckles were white against the receiver. He hung up and ran to the car.